So I'll end by saying that you all have chosen wisely to be here at Oglethorpe, and also are very lucky to be at an institution that would close its entire campus on a Friday to dedicate a conversation to the importance of the liberal arts.
As we looked at scientific history, what you see is a series of scientific revolutions that happened as great thinkers were willing to break from what was known and to change the world because they were willing to speak up and say, this doesn't work, and start from scratch, as opposed to trying to use faulty ideas and precepts to build a notion of what was and could be.
The whole idea of bisections between science and the church is actually a pretty limited viewpoint. Yes, there were moments where the church, locked Galileo or banished him from his hometown, and there were also times when scientists didn't want to move forward. Church people didn't want to move forward because that was the way everything had always been.
No one has been able to say that science and cosmology now is purely scientific and mathematical. It's a relationship of both, and a lot of things that we've discovered about cosmology have been a process of elimination. So we could say that definitely didn't happen, that didn't happen, so it has to be this. And then we can try to find equations to match up with what we found.
The one-child policy, in conjunction with the cultural and traditional preference for sons, has created a huge male-biased population within China. Basically, the idea is that the more extra males that you have in the population, the more competition exists for the fewer females that are in the population.
So the first thing I want to do is to explode any misconceptions you have about the myth of multitasking, because it actually is a myth. Multitasking should actually be called task switching, because it is scientifically impossible for our brains to do two things at once. So what we're really doing when we think we're multitasking is task switching. We're going from one thing to the next. And in the process of doing so, we lose time. We lose our productivity in doing things.
When you text and drive, you're saying that you're invincible. You're saying that your message is more important than your safety or the safety of your passengers and those drivers around you. Are your messages really worth more than your lives or your safety? Are they worth you being placed in jail for vehicular manslaughter? Are they worth hospital bills or car repair bills after a severe crash? Some of you may find my statements as dramatic, but I adamantly disagree. Because every time you divert your attention from the road for a text, you risk the possibility of any of the consequences that I just mentioned.
It is a decision we make to put forth our faith in technology as the antidote to human frailty, when acceptance of frailty is what makes us indeed human. In that regard, Alone Together further discusses the anxiety that we feel in the words of the author Sherry Turkle within ourselves when unable. Being unable is the first step of acknowledgement in order to bring change in technology overload. Our social cyber lives and get back to the basics of life. Let us be more aware of the anxieties we cause on ourselves due to the alternate lives that we live.
And incongruity theory basically says we find something humorous or horrifying because it's incongruous, it doesn't make sense, it doesn't fit in with our surroundings. The idea of sublime from Immanuel Kant is that basically, if we find something that we don't understand, there are a few ways that we can respond to it. With awe, or we can just be kind of terrified by it. And my idea is that humor and comedy comes in when you actually reject the trial to understand something, when you accept that you can't understand it, and your comprehension comes in the sense that you understand you can't understand it. Whereas horror is, this is never going to make sense to you, there are too many things going on, and if you try to figure it out anyway, you're just going to be left feeling kind of insane and without any idea of what's going on.